Have you ever pondered the innate fear of the terrifying aspect of womanhood that lurks within the deep evolutionary layer of maturation? This fear, functioning like a venom, is pushed back into the subconscious when consciousness is inaccurately displaced. In mythology, we observe the woman's bloodlust as subject to a natural law: fertility. The orgiastic element appears not only in fertility festivals, but also, as we learn from myths, there is a sacrificial animal whose blood is shed, and its death serves the fertility of the woman and the earth. Today, we delve into the symbolism and significance of death, sacrifice, and castration in the context of the young fertility agent. Death, sacrifice, and castration are the fate of the young fertility agent, and are linked to the blood-soaked orgies in the cult of the Great Mother. The king's annual body sacrifice and burial of his body parts are primitive magic for the fertility of the earth. Only when we look at the sacrificed members as one unit can we understand the original significance. The preservation of the phallus, as the guarantor of fertility, is another side of the ritual, and together with the castration, they create the complete symbol. Behind the archetype of the Great Mother lies the experience of death. As the earth takes back her offspring as the dead, she divides and dissolves them to make herself fertile. This experience is preserved in the ceremonies of the terrible mother who becomes a flesh-eater and eventually a glossary, the last remnant of the primitive fertility cult of mankind. Castration, death, and sacrifice at this level are equivalent. They are coordinated with the death of vegetation, the harvest, and tree cutting. Castration and tree cutting are very close to each other in myth and identical at the symbolic level. They both appear in the myth of Attis, the Syrian Astarte, Ephesian Artemis, and more. We will focus slightly on one, that of Attis, who castrated himself under a pine tree, turned into a pine tree, and then that tree was cut down. Another form of the sacred sacrifice of castration is the loss of hair, as the length of hair testifies to masculinity and strength. The sacrifice of hair is a symbol of religious priests, Catholic monks, Egyptian hierophants, and even Buddhist monks. Despite the differences in these religious perspectives, lack of hair correlates to abstinence from sex. The head shaving was the symbol of self-castration, abstinence from sex, in the cult of the Great Mother, not only with Attis but repeatedly in tree cutting, vegetation death, wheat harvest, castration, sacrifice, and head shaving, all of which are equivalent at the symbolic level. The use of women's clothing worn by the Galli, the castrated priests of the Great Mother in Syria, Carthage, Rome, etc., are preserved in the garments of Catholic monks, but with them, the sacrifice only reaches the point of identification without castration like the Galli. Not only does the male sacrifice to the Great Mother, but he also becomes her representative, and therefore he wears her clothes, a female with a dress. Whether he sacrifices his masculinity in self-castration or by being a prostitute, it is simple and variant. The castrated priests are also sacred prostitutes, since they are the representatives of the idol whose orgiastic nature passes her fertile nature. Death, castration, and sacrifice are the dangers of the Great Mother's young lover. But they do not describe his relationship with the Great Mother appropriately. In her terrifying image of the Great Mother, there is another side that makes her even more terrifying and more desirable. She is the goddess who drives crazy and fascinates, the temptress and bringer of pleasure. The charm of sex and the intoxicating orgy is at its peak in the subconscious and is an integral part of the Great Mother. The Ouroboric incest we talked about symbolizes dissolution and obliteration because of its total nature, non-sexual. Incest at the level of the maturing person is sexual and limited to sexuality only. The Great Mother becomes all womb, while the young lover becomes all phallus, and the whole process is entirely on the sexual level.